I've spent my career in artificial intelligence, jumping between academia and industry. This particular next is so exciting for me because it's all about how artificial intelligence has become a real and significant part of the world's economy. And I'm imagining the students I was teaching 20 years ago about the futuristic promise of AI. And although we have a heck of a lot further to go, much of it is now actually here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rajen, Sheth, and I lead the product team for Cloud AI. I've been at Google 15 years and in enterprise the whole time because my passion is turning interesting technology like this into products that can help all of you, customers, developers, partners, do really great things. And I think AI is probably the most interesting technology I've seen because it can really empower people to really transform.
So in 2019, I think you're seeing this in this particular meeting. We are taking the business of AI very seriously. The fact is that where many of us were excited about producing tools which had the prospect of helping transform industries, we're now most interested in the science of how enterprises adopt AI effectively, without too many false starts, safely, reliably, and of course, in an ethical and sensible way that respects the kind of cultures that we're unleashing AI into.
And as Andrew often says, we like to work backwards in that we need to start with your problems. What are the real business problems that are out there, and then figure out how we can work together to solve them, and that's what we're oriented towards doing.
So we're co-hosting this session. We are both AI nerds who've actually had pretty different career paths getting here, but that's why it's so exciting and such an honor for us to be involved in this great responsibility of making sure that Google does the right thing in terms of AI. So this is what we and Google Cloud are now dedicated to.
And so in today's session, what we're really going to focus on is stories from customers. And so you're going to hear from a variety of interesting customers and stories from different customers about how they're using AI to be able to solve some of their problems. And really kind of focusing on how this is there today and what you can really do today.
Our first guest demonstrates that AI customers don't just need powerful algorithms. And that's certainly been a huge learning, I think, of many people in our industry, that it's about how you can scale these things so that it goes from a fun Jupyter notebook into a real-world deployment. So please welcome Alex Owens, VP and Global Head of People Data Centers, AI, and Data Governance at Unilever. All right, so welcome. It's great to have you here. Firstly, before we jump into the details, tell us about your career trajectory and what's brought you into the world of AI.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I've worked in data and analytics most of my career. Prior to Unilever, I worked in banking. Don't shoot me. I worked in media as well, so I worked under Rupert Murdoch's youngest son, James, using data and analytics to power B-Sky B, which is,
oh, great.
Yeah,
yes.
You'll probably be familiar with that. And then before that, I worked in the BBC. So yeah.
The British Broadcasting Corporation.
The British Broadcasting Corporation.
Right, very good.
Yeah. And I guess, now at Unilever, I mean, for many people, I don't know if people know Unilever well, but I can imagine some of you probably do. We're the second biggest advertiser in the world. We spend $8 billion a year advertising, and Google is a very strategic partner of ours. We have 200 markets, 500 brands, and actually the biggest opportunity is in the fact that 2.5 billion people use our products every day. And so there's a massive opportunity there to collect data from the consumers on the consumption of the products. Yeah.
That's great. I find that it's really exciting to have that data, but then you get completely crushed by the volumes of it unless you've got a strategy for managing it.
Yeah.
So part of your job title is People Data Centers. That is a weird but cool term. Tell me more
Yeah,
about it.
well, I think we joke at Unilever as well, and the fact that I guess the only constant is change. I think that's my job title today. God knows what it will be tomorrow when I get home. Who knows? But I mean, let me give you a little bit more background, so at least it brings the context, I guess, how we use Google Cloud APIs. But we have a very grand ambition of 1 billion one-to-one relationships through meaningful and relevant dialogue. And so what do we mean by that? Using data and technology to speak to our consumers one-to-one. My job has been primarily on people data centers, which is effectively 3 pillars. So all of the social and business analytics that we do on a global basis. So we have access to 30 or 40 different data points, whether that be social data, search data, ratings and reviews data, or business data. My team on a global basis will mine that data to drive insight. The second element of the people data center is what we call our consumer engagement centers, or in other words, call centers. Yeah. And so loving the conversation this morning around the contact center API. And we get maybe 15 million calls. Considering how many people use our products, it's not that many, but it's a massive insight source. Yeah. And a vast amount of data. And the third element is what we call internally PRM, or people relationship marketing, which is effectively CRM. So I'm accountable for deploying the capability across the business, but also driving CRM across our business using Adobe Marketing Cloud, actually, in this case.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, operating at that scale must be so much fun. So, given the complexity, I assume that this is part of the reason why you're going beyond regular information technology into artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we have, one, I always joke when you speak to people about AI, it's probably an overused term and a misunderstood term. And for me, I think AI is an umbrella term, I suppose, and the way that we look at it is through the various strands of AI. The biggest thing that we've used in Google from an API perspective, and we're using many others, which I'll come on to explain in a second, but it's the Vision API. Yeah, so the Vision API gives us the ability to decode a lot of the imageries that we see, whether it be on Instagram or whether it be on any image-heavy social platform. But that's primarily for an insight purpose. So how can we understand more about the way in which our consumers are speaking about us through imageries on the social platforms? But more importantly and more recently, we've actually been using the Google Vision API on our data-driven marketing. So how can we understand how our campaigns are performing real time, so we can optimize the content to meet the audience and effectively change the creative when creatives aren't themselves working too well.
Very good. So I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
Yeah.
I'm proud of Vision API, but there must be something you really wish we'd already done. Is there something that we could be doing better there?
I mean, to be honest, the Vision API for us has been outstanding. I really do think it's been outstanding. When we played around a lot with image recognition capability in the past, yes, it's water. Is that a fish? I'm not quite sure if it's a fish type stuff. But nowadays I think the Vision API is outstanding. I mean, we do use others, so we use your Visual API, which is your moving imagery. Yep. One which I think is probably not quite there as good yet as the Vision API. Yeah,
give us another week.
But give you another week, yeah, exactly. Is there something that you guys haven't done? It's a good question, but I think, we have been really impressed by the Vision API, and I think not just its ability to decode and then eventually it sits behind it, but actually the speed at which you can get the information back and process the data to be able to optimize a campaign real time. Very
good. Well, I'm glad to hear that positive feedback. If it's positive feedback, I'm going to tell you that this was really my project. If it had been the other way, it would have been Rajen's project.
Well, people don't know me well, but I can tell you I'm not a fan of praise. I absolutely hate praise, so if I just praised you there, it's a good thing.
Very good. All right. So when it comes to the sort of actual results, do you have metrics showing you whether this sort of use of AI really helps?
Well, let me go back and let me just explain 2 examples when we've used the Vision API. The first is for insight, and the second is for data-driven marketing, before I come on to the results. So the first one is we use, as I said, Vision API to decode all of the imagery. We've invented our own tool internally called Pixel, which is basically powered by Google Vision API. We've done a recent piece in India for a very famous tea brand of ours. You might not know Lipton, I suppose. We make Ben & Jerry's, Dove, Lipton, you name it. You eat it, you put it in your skin, and you clean your house with most of the stuff that we have. But that really helped us, I guess, take what we did to another level. Because using the Vision API, we managed to not only understand how people were consuming tea, but more importantly, we could then look at stuff in terms of facial recognition. We could play around with situational type analysis as well, so where were people consuming tea? And ultimately, it gave us insights that we had never, ever got before. Yeah, because most of the insights were coming from text in the past, but the way in which people consume our products, most of which is in situations that you wouldn't necessarily have seen otherwise. And actually, it just won the best paper at the MRSI in India. Wow. Because it was, because of the insights that it generated and the ability of us then now driving a campaign, which is a very different campaign that we would have run for tea in years gone by. The second one on data-driven marketing, and it's a very proud one again. I think we won an Effie on this and partnering again with Google on it. So in effect, we set up a command center. It was for Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy is basically a hand sanitizer. It's a hand washing cream. It's one of our oldest brands, probably I think about 80 to 100 years old. And it was in North Africa and Middle East, and it was during Ramadan. So we set up a command center. We had Google analysts coming in. We use Google Analytics both in terms of the search capability as well to understand how people were interacting, but more importantly, by the Vision API, it allowed us to adapt the content real time and change the content real time because of the ability to process the information, see what content was working with which audience, and ultimately then adapt that content to reflect more the needs of the consumer across, I think this was across about 7 or 8 markets.
Fantastic.
The results for that were phenomenal. They really were phenomenal. We grew our market share over the Ramadan period with Lifebuoy of 4%, which pretty phenomenal. I hadn't seen results like that at all, and that was purely because we were speaking to our consumers in the right way, through the right channels, with the right content.
Very interesting. Congratulations. So, what's next? I assume we are not done with deployment of AI.
No. We use it, as I said, extensively across the organization, and I guess my team is at the heart of the digital transformation, whether that be our end-to-end supply chain, whether it be in the way that we can innovate much faster into market, or whether it be through our data-driven marketing. So the next stages is we're partnering heavily with you guys again on using the visual API, so the moving imagery one to do stuff like YouTube. Again, for an insight perspective, but also for a campaign perspective as well. Contact center API is something that we're playing around with. We've got a couple of pilots in flight at the moment. I haven't quite seen the fruits of its labor yet, but I'm sure if it's like the Vision API, it will be doing overall pretty well. And NLP, we use NLP heavily within everything that we do, especially as you're starting to summarize a lot of the data that we get from our social platforms.
Very good. So, the next thing in all of this is the importance of how we do this responsibly. And I'm very aware how much of a brand killer it can be if someone does something irresponsible. How do you guys handle this?
No, it's very good. It's a very good question. Ultimately, everything that we do has to retain our consumers' trust. We are a consumer goods giant. Our consumers are at the heart of our business, and many businesses say consumers are at the heart of their business, but it's true for us. If it wasn't for our consumers, we wouldn't have a business. Unilever cares passionately about its values. We are a very values-driven organization. Sustainability is at our core, whether that be environmental or societal. And therefore, everything that we do, we have the consumer in our mind. There are certain things we set up internally. I just realized, actually, I'm wearing pink socks today as well, for those that saw the note before.
Oh, nice.
For inclusiveness. I didn't realize, it was just by chance. Anyway, but we have an AI ethics committee, and we work very closely with our partners, such as yourself and Facebook, to make sure that whatever we do with the data is done so in the right way. And the AI ethics committee is actually chaired by our general counsel, our CFO, our Chief Data Officer, and Chief Digital Officers. So it goes all the way to the top. Yeah, we are generally a bottom-up organization, not a top-down organization, but for things like this, you need to have sponsorship at senior levels.
Yes.
Similarly, we have deployed what we call Unilever Cloud, which is basically Adobe Marketing Cloud, in 24 markets over the last year. That is using both the digital data you'll collect through your DMP, as well as all the PII information that we'd collect through subscriptions or competitions or sampling. But every single market that we go live in, we make sure that they are GDPR compliant. Now, GDPR is the regulation that's in Europe, and that is it's a very tight regulation. But if I had to go to Thailand, for example, Thailand, you could do what you like with any data. I could buy a dodgy list off a man in the street, and I could use that list. But ultimately, any market that goes live has to be GDPR compliant because, one, it holds our reputation.
Yep.
But secondly, it ensures that we're future-proof the business as well.
Excellent. I'm really glad you take this approach. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Rajen to discuss one of our next use cases. Everyone, thank you so much. Please thank Alex for joining us here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next story we're going to talk about is Fox Sports in Australia. And I thought it was a very interesting story. How many of you here are cricket fans by any chance? A good amount in the crowd. I'm a newbie to cricket, but my entire family is cricket fans, so I've been learning very rapidly on this. But what's interesting is that Fox Sports in Australia is using AutoML tables, which is a new product that we introduced today, to change the way that cricket is watched. And AutoML tables is essentially a way that we can take the power of AutoML, which is essentially automatically generating machine learning models for a given data set and deploying it for you. But we can apply that to structured tabular data. And a lot of the problems that many of our customers face are tabular data problems. And in their case, with Fox Sports, they had a specific thing that they wanted to do. So in their case, cricket has been a staple of broadcasting in Australia for 60 years, and it's traditionally been available for free, but now it's not. Now it's something that is a paid broadcast, and so the expectations of Fox Sports for cricket were really, really high. And so their challenge was, how do you then acquire new subscribers? Because in order for them to actually watch these games, you have to actually acquire these subscribers. How do you reduce the cost per acquisition by 40%? And then how do you actually get a share of the live cricket audience with this? And so they needed to figure out how to do this, and they used machine learning and artificial intelligence to be able to do this. And so the vision behind this was that they were trying to figure out, what if you could actually anticipate the most exciting moments of the game? Cricket is a long game, some cases lasting more, multiple days long. And so how can you actually anticipate that something interesting is about to happen and alert users that something interesting is about to happen? And so what they did is they used our technologies to build what they call Monty, which is essentially a model to try to predict this, try to predict that there are interesting things happening in the game. And so what they put into it was the bowled ball-by-ball data from these cricket matches, and they were then using our technologies to then make predictions based on that data. So in particular, what they were outputting was the chance of a wicket falling. And they, for example, this is just an example where they would be able to say that with X amount of probability, a wicket is going to fall in the next 5 minutes, for example. And so something like that can then attract people to come and watch the game, because then they know something exciting is about to happen. And so once they did this, they then integrated that into their marketing campaigns. So they would integrate it into everything from literally billboard ads all the way through to the Fox Sports app, through to things like Google Home and social media, to get this wicket warning out to viewers. And they would then be able to be drawn back into this. And it was shockingly accurate in terms of the actual accuracy of this, such that in most cases, something actually exciting really did happen after this. And this was a tweet about the results. And so, of course, the term of game changer has become a bit of a cliche, but it actually really does apply here for real. And so this became a fundamental part of their broadcast, and a fundamental way that they started to connect with viewers. So this may seem like kind of a trivial example, but it had real major business impact for them. It increased their viewer engagement by 140%. It increased their subscriber to dollar spend by 150%. And it increased their brand recall by 2x. And so this kind of thing can be another way to use AI to be able to draw people in and start to actually build up your brand and get a real result out of it. So tabular data is not something that seems like the most interesting area, but it is actually one of the most interesting areas. What we're finding is that with many of our customers, probably more than half of the machine learning problems that they have are tabular data problems. And AutoML tables is a great way to solve this, because essentially what we can now do is generate an accurate model on top of this tabular data and make it such that you can have outcomes like this for things like marketing, but all the way through many, many other kind of structured data problems. So I'll turn it back over to Andrew to introduce our next customer.
Very good. Thank you, Rajen. And that's a really interesting story. I grew up with a father who was obsessed by cricket, and I could have really used this so that I could just jump in when it actually gets interesting. No slight intended to the cricket fans out there. All right, so we've had a really nice discussion about marketing and retail, and another nice discussion about media and entertainment. Another really important area, which of course drives the world's economy, is finance. And so applying artificial intelligence in finance is important. There's all kinds of good it can do. It really underlines the need for things beyond predictive accuracy, and especially that includes transparency. We cannot allow black boxes to be running the world of finance for us. So our next speaker or interviewee has very significant experience with this as part of the Blackrock organization. So I'm very pleased to welcome up to the stage Stefano Pascali. Stefano, thank you. So fill us in on Blackrock and the kinds of problems that you're facing.
Okay. Blackrock as an asset manager has a mandate to manage investment and trading security in the market to satisfy our clients' need to invest their money for the future wealth. In my specific case, and there are many teams BlackRock that apply AI machine learning. My specific day job is try to build a model to forecast different type of liquidity to support trader and portfolio manager to manage better the portfolio from the liquidity risk management perspective.
Very good. So how is cloud AI actually helping you in this?
My objective is not AI. I use often the word machine learning. My objective is to build a good model. Now, liquidity, by nature of the problem, is a problem that is very difficult to solve. Sparse data or data that are available are very noisy, and there is high dimensionality. So all these type of problem that machine learning can help a lot. So we enter in this adventure almost immediately. 10 years ago, when I started this job about research liquidity, I immediately start to look into random forest, decision tree, network network, clearly just for fun, because 10 years ago, network network clearly wasn't an optimal solution. So now we are able to, we personally use with my team the cloud for the research and proof of concept, and we are able to do a lot of tests and a lot of development in our research, leveraging the cloud and using machine learning / AI only when it's necessary.
Yep.
So I'm not ashamed to tell that I rolled out in production with my team last quarter to a model based on random forest and another model based on 2-variable linear regression, because it was doing the job. So it's not about going to machine learning for the sake of machine learning.
Yes. I totally approve of that approach, by the way, and it's a common misconception that you need massively complex models all the time. Very frequently, It's actually the responsible thing to do to try to minimize the number of parameters to explain something. And I can see how in your industry that's particularly important. So yeah, 2 parameters instead of 2 million, I would wear that as a badge of honor.
If it does the job, yes.
Yes. So there is this really important thing, though. It is not like we're trying to predict flaws in manufacture of sunglasses or something. There are real people and lives and societal issues going on here. So how do you account for this in the design of your AI systems?
Blackrock has a big company centralized initiative about AI to try exactly to build this practice of AI in the company. My specific case in building models is very simple. I'm seeking for performance. Everybody wants to claim that I have a model performing out of sample very well. And without giving away, because we are dealing with the fiduciary role of our clients, we are dealing with people money, so I cannot ask the trader to believe my model based on black boxes. So we always try to find the right equilibrium between overshooting, so sometimes the regression can do the job, so it's cool, exciting, but it's not really necessary. And when you can push on the machine learning world, try to account that you cannot, for a moment, push too far deep into the research because of interpretability. Yes. So you are able, must be able, maybe in other sector, but in financial world particularly, you need to be able to explain and attribute the outcome of your model to the input features.
Very good. And this is, for me, such a important and typical lesson that no 2 data scientists actually get to follow the same recipe. Pretty much in every industry, in every use case, there's some different combination of constraints you're under. And in this case, you've really had to experiment with these extra constraints that you cannot have unjustified complexity in the models. Do you think there are things that those of us who are supplying the AI industry should be doing better to help create a more finance-friendly form of AI?
Yes, Rajen knows my paranoia, interpretability.
Yeah.
When I was speaking in other Google event in London, when we leave in the stage, Rajen showed to me some research that we guys were doing about interpretability.
Yes.
I really lock him in the room and try to understand more because it's really our priority. So it's definitely our priority, and to the point that when I was mentioned before that we roll out a model based on random forest, we have in the cloud a parallel implementation with neural network. As expected, the performance is higher, but we need to build an interpretability framework around this in order to roll out this model. Is an example that I do all the time. One of these models is supposed to forecast T+1 tradable volume for a bond. I go to the trader and I say, there is a big drop in tradable volume for tomorrow, so tomorrow maybe it's going to be problematic to trade this bond. Assuming that I'm right, the next question the trader is going to ask me is, say, why your model is forecasting a much lower number? And honestly, I cannot say to him, I have a beautiful deep learning model, I backtest the model. No, I need to say to him, because of all these features, they jump, they move, and so the forecast is changed. This is a big thing for us.
Very good. And it is something where we in Google have been really pushing hard on making sure that we're ready to help answer those why types of questions. Is it something which we should always do? So do you see a day when we just don't use really sophisticated models because we have to keep them all interpretable?
No, first of all, we count a lot on people like you solving the problem. And second of all, I was receiving in one conference a question how much I would give away interpretability to seek performance. And my rule of thumb is if the output the model produces is directly used for business decision, I will give away 0% of interpretability. So whatever it takes, going back to a random forest or going back to a regressive model. If these are features that are input of the final output, maybe you can give up a little bit interpretability. For example, if you build a beautiful NLP model to generate a sentiment index about liquidity, and this is one feature in your model, then maybe it's becoming less important for you to be able to attribute the sentiment to the input article. That is impossible and doesn't really make sense. Yes. So depends the layer in the process of producing the output, where is the model where we can give up interpretability a little bit.
Yes, I very much agree with that answer, and I've usually see big machine learning deployments. You have models feeding into other models. Sometimes you want to be able to isolate one of them and understand what it's doing, but sometimes one of the outputs doesn't need to be explained because we are doing that work later on down the line. Very good. So, what do you see as next in finance using artificial intelligence?
In my specific case, try to improve the quality of our modeling, leveraging this technology. So for me, AI machine learning is a tool to achieve better performance, accounting for what we just said, the interpretability component. I personally see, I'm a strong believer, even it's not my team, we have the machine learning expertise. We are not, at least I'm not an NLP guy. We have people in Blackrock working on NLP. I personally believe that NLP can contain a big source of valuable features to plug into the model. So when I see somebody building a powerful NLP model to extract sentiment from textual news, I think this one will be a big step forward in the quality of our model.
I very much agree. So natural language processing, any free text you've got in your systems, it's important to do several different things. Extract the entities being referenced. If the text is a sentence, find the relationship being described, what we call a triple in a knowledge graph. And then sentiment is another really big one. So very much this is another aspect or example of a staged multiple layer machine learning and deployment where you're going to use more natural language processing to get you signals to help you make better decisions.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you. I could talk to you for a lot longer. I think we're all very thrilled that important companies like Blackrock are really being careful about transparency in their AI work. Thank you.
And tomorrow I will show actually some of this example in a breakout session where we can see where we're able to push the model or we're obliged to wait a little bit because interpretability.
All right, that's great. We'll look forward to that tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So the next case study I want to talk through is from Walt Disney Company. And it's one of these things where in this case, Walt Disney Company, in many cases, is an e-commerce company or a retail company. And what they're trying to figure out is how can they actually get to know their users and have a more personalized experience for their users. Today, earlier in the morning, you saw that we released what we call Recommendations AI. And what we're doing here is we're taking a lot of the best of our knowledge of personalization and bringing this into a product that can deliver product recommendations at scale. And Disney has been one of our first customers with this. And they're using it for a variety of things on their Shop Disney site. So they're using this for things like placement on a product detail page so that you can find things that are more like this. They have an existing system in place, and they're using 1 year of anonymized data to be able to figure out this recommendation. And their belief is that if they can have better recommendations, they'll have happier users, and it'll increase their revenue. And so what they've tried was a test with us, kind of an A/B test with their existing system versus our system. And this is literally what they saw, which was really fascinating. So you can see here, and it's a little bit small, but what the customer was trying to order here was an Eeyore sleep mask. And I can guarantee you that if you're getting an Eeyore sleep mask, you're probably not looking for the Darth Vader mask as well. However, the results on the right was the test group B with our system, and you can see the kinds of things that this came up, which are much, much more logical. If you're getting the Eeyore sleep mask, you probably want other things with Eeyore or other things from Winnie the Pooh that might be there. And so we're doing this based on not things just related to the current product, but a holistic view of the customer from Disney's data to be able to produce these results. And the results are much better for the end user. And so what they saw in production was that this increased the average order value. It increased the number of units per transaction, and then also increased the revenue overall. They've been running this now in production for all of Shop Disney since July of 2018. They were one of the first customers that we worked with, and then more recently, they've brought this together into the frequently brought together section, and then they're now starting to do that since November of last year, and so they're able to see some very tangible results that hit clear ROI for them. So the last one that we want to talk about is Hulu, and we talked a bit about this on stage at the keynote this morning, but we want to dive into this use case in a lot of detail and talk about how Hulu has been using contact center AI to be able to help customer service. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Matt Kravitz, the Director of Service Applications and Viewer Experience from Hulu.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. And so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about Hulu?
Sure. First question is, why did we put the guy with the New Jersey accent after Stefano? He's got a great accent, so everybody's in for a treat with me. So I'm Matt Kravitz, and I'm the Director of Service Applications for Hulu. And I'm responsible for innovation specifically in the service experience. So first, I'm really, really excited to be here. There was something that was announced this morning, the partnership with Five9 and with Salesforce, and it has really an opportunity to affect many of our businesses. So I'm super, super excited. So hopefully you guys know Hulu, because many of you in the room, you really are the target demographic. But for those that don't, we have 25 million active subscribers. We're a 10-year-old business. And in our 10th year, we experienced 48% year-over-year growth.
Wow.
So the good news is a lot of growth. The downside is that it could really put a lot of complexity and risk in terms of what it impacts in terms of the customer experience. Are you prepared for that sort of scale? So it has some interesting challenges in terms of trying to maintain customer satisfaction or CSAT within the call center and transactional experiences. So, why am I excited about AI? I think it's really reached somewhat of an inflection point. And I think this is a very, very recent occurrence where the technology has become simplified enough and accessible enough that you don't have to be super technical as an organization and do a lot of hiring in terms of trying to get sort of a lift of capabilities.
Right.
So, because of that maturity, and that sort of point, it really allows us to spend a lot more time worrying about the customer experience and a lot less time worrying about models and algorithms and things that really aren't as impactful in terms of our investments.
That makes sense. And so how are you using the technology to enhance the customer experience?
Okay. So at Hulu, we've decided to really focus on partnering. There's other areas of the business that really are, historically sort of a build business, especially when it comes to our core competence, which is media and streaming and searching algorithms. But as you're starting to get further from the core competence and in the service environment, we're partnering. So we have 3 partners that we're plugging into on our ecosystem. The first is Salesforce. We really use them end to end. Our help site is Salesforce, our communities, our omni-channel deployment. So we offer a couple different ways to contact us through chat or telephony. And we started our AI journey recently with chatbots. The second partner is Five9, who's a cloud-based telephony company. It really has allowed us to scale up very quickly. And it also plugs in very, very well into Salesforce in terms of the omni-channel telephony capability.
Right.
And now we're partnering with Google. And we're really exposing Google to the next generation of complex use cases. And what's really so amazing for us is that we've built out this ecosystem. And as each of these partners are sort of evolving their respective roadmaps, it's very easy for us to plug this in. So something like a dialogue flow, it's just really almost even plug and play for us. So it's a really good partner ecosystem that we built.
That's great. It feels like kind of one adds on top of each other.
Yeah.
And makes each one better. And so can you talk a little bit about your business challenges and what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
Right, so we alluded to that in the beginning, which is that 48% number and what that growth really does to contact volume. So you just can't depend on hiring more and more people. It's just not scalable. So we're becoming increasingly dependent upon technology and innovation, right? There's a couple KPIs that I think could sort of measure how you're making progress. Two very simple ones would be average handle time,
Right.
AHT, and measuring that and how technology can play against the AHT. And there's a couple good examples of how we're addressing that. And the other is positive deflection, right? So it's not deflection, it's positive, which is sort of helping people resolve issues. So the question is, if you're reducing AHT and you're trying to increase positive deflection, how do you do that without sort of negatively impacting Net Promoter Score and CSAT as well? So you sort of have to balance both these things, and that's an interesting business challenge.
No, definitely. That's really tricky in trying to figure out how to balance that without one affecting the other. Yeah. And so can you share anything really interesting with the audience and something cool that you think would interest the audience?
Yes, so Hulu is a media company. So we have now an animated short that we partnered with Salesforce and Google, and it's this amazing new movie.
Of
So we're going to share it with you guys, and that probably can explain it better than words could do.
Wonderful. Well, we'd love to see that.
Google Cloud and Salesforce are partnering to deliver AI-powered customer service experiences so that every company can transform their customers' experience. Let's show you Hulu's vision for scaling engaging experiences for their more than 25 million subscribers through the eyes of Lauren, a Hulu viewer. Hulu makes it easy for their viewers to get help anytime, anywhere. Instead of customers having to navigate a lengthy phone tree, a Hulu bot powered by Google Cloud's virtual agent technology can immediately engage viewers in a human-like conversational experience, help resolve issues 24/7, and seamlessly hand off the call to a human agent at the right time.
Hi Lauren, thanks for calling Hulu. How can I help you today?
Hi, I would like to update my plan to watch the NBA basketball games.
Sure thing. Looks like you've been watching on a Chromecast Ultra. Is this the device you'd be watching the game on?
Yep.
Perfect. I'd recommend our Hulu Plus Live TV plan. If you'd like, I can transfer you to one of our viewer experience advocates to get that set up.
That would be great. Thanks.
Hey Lauren, thanks for calling Hulu.
The human agent now has everything they need in the Salesforce Service Cloud console, including the full call transcript to expedite case resolution. Google's Agent Assist technology automatically presents machine learning-driven recommendations, making it easy for agents to know what viewers need and get answers fast.
It looks like you'd like to add the Hulu Plus Live TV plan to watch the basketball games. I'd be happy to help you out there.
That would be great.
Perfect. I'll update your plan to add live TV.
As the call progresses, Agent Assist continues to surface new recommendations based on the context of the conversation.
Did you know that you could also watch Hulu Live TV on additional devices such as tablets? Would you like me to help you set that up?
Sure, I'd like that.
Great. I'll send over an article that will walk you through the steps for future devices as well.
AI-powered recommendations and offers are provided in real time, allowing agents to add value to every conversation and keep viewers engaged and happy.
What else have you been watching recently besides basketball?
My husband and I have been wanting to binge watch Game of Thrones so we can get ready for the final season.
Awesome. Did you know that if you add HBO through your Hulu plan, you can watch directly in the Hulu app? If you'd like, I can add HBO to your plan as well.
Yes, let's do it.
Agents are guided step-by-step through any business process. No memorization of what to do next required. The combined power of Google Cloud AI and Salesforce Einstein also makes call wrap-up easy with pre-populated case details, improving data quality and saving agents time as they move on to helping the next viewer. With Google Cloud and Salesforce, Hulu can now integrate AI into every service interaction and reimagine the viewer experience.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Great.
Very cool.
this looks great on my IMD profile. Really, really very exciting. Yeah.
That's great. But it's really interesting, very, very cool stuff. It really shows the example of how this can be so useful.
There's a lot here. There's
yeah.
two of my favorites I'd love to share.
Yeah.
So one is really good acronym to remember is RTSA, Real-Time Speech Analytics. So I think this is the game changer, or one of the game changers. So what's amazing to see during that video is what was happening in the center of the screen, how as you're having a conversation with our viewer, you're literally, it's almost like a closed caption. There's an immediate transcription of the voice. That technology itself isn't really the game changer. But what happens is, as that is being able to be transcribed into text, it unlocks a few interesting capabilities. So one interesting capability is in the traditional call center environment, is when a case loads, you're looking at a knowledge article or a next best action. And it's sort of a singular concept in terms of how the conversation starts. But it's amazing to watch that during that video that it's able to update itself and throughout the conversation to give really dynamic recommendations.
That's great.
So that RTSA really enables that technology. So it's a very exciting conversation capability. The other thing that it really could unlock is imagine during a call what you could do around A/B testing. So through upsells or retention offers. Again, instead of having a static list, having the system understand the intent of that conversation. In that case, Game of Thrones is an intent,
yeah.
and offering HBO as a next best action, that package is just, it really unlocks some pretty cool capabilities. And with AI, we can really do this across all of our calls, not just a subset of the calls, and you're really going to get optimal recommendations through that. In terms of the business outcome of that, and I know that's really sort of the focus, is you're really getting at least 30 seconds in terms of the search cost for the knowledge articles.
Wow.
And for the next best action. In our business, seconds count.
Yeah.
Getting our viewers back to watching television faster is really our goal. So saving 20, 30 seconds, it's really a very nice lift. So that's going to impact that average handle time.
That's great, and that's great for the customers and for you.
Yep, everybody wins.
That's great. And so, what about other use cases? What's the second use case?
The second one is my favorite, and it's my favorite, and it's really, I think, sort of a universal call center pain point, which is the least fun thing about working in a call center is attribution or after call work. It sort of reminds me, filling out an expense report, and you have all those drop downs, like is it an airfare or is it a meal? It's just painful, and half the time you just really don't pick the right value, because why am I spending all this time and energy picking the right value?
Right.
Call centers sort of feel the same way, call center agents. So very often you'll see a lot of others, or alphabetically you'll get something at the top because it's the easiest to select. So looking back at that video, that screen that popped up on the upper right-hand side in terms of what's sort of the case outcome and the attribution around it, it's a game changer for two ways. Number one, again, we're going to get 20 seconds back per call. So we have the 30 seconds from the last use case. We're going to get 20 seconds through the auto attribution. But the other thing is it actually gives us good data and insights. So being able to partner with somebody like Google, who's going to be able to parse that information, determine the intent, give all that information back into the service console for the agent to say yes and do that final approval, it's really going to give us some great insights.
That's really great.
So dialogue flow is really going to be very valuable for enabling that technology. I think that's a pretty universal use case.
That's great. Well, a last thought on this is around the ethics of AI. And what can you tell us about your thoughts on that?
Sure. So we thought of two examples, low-hanging fruit in terms of what we're going to do with saving time. So 50 seconds. The question is, what do you do with those 50 seconds? I think the easy answer is just to say it's ROI, and that's what's going to fund your project. There's also a very interesting potential counterpoint to that, which is maybe there's something more humane to do at that time. Maybe you split the time with the agent, meaning let's give 25 seconds over to ROI and back to the business. Maybe give 25 seconds back to the agent, right? Just give them a second to breathe or to stand up, or to just improve sort of the quality of their work experience. So it's a very interesting conversation, and I think I'm pretty fortunate to be in a situation to even be in the midst of that internal debate. But I think the ethics of what AI is going to bring is a really great topic. So
That's great. That's a great way to think about it. Well, this is a really interesting new approach. We really appreciate you sharing this with us.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So, I really enjoyed this. And you'll notice how talking about Google artificial intelligence, the best way is to talk about the stories of what's actually happening in enterprises, because that's where we are these days. The key things that we're seeing in common is we're boosting viewer engagement, we're scaling customer service, we're making decisions more quickly and more transparently, and we're making things globalized, but we're still retaining that personalization touch.
I think most importantly, this is within your reach. This isn't something that's in the future. It's there that's there right now, and it's for everyone. For things like being more efficient, for things like unlocking the value of your data and reaching your customers in a better way. So definitely, there are many, many sessions that are going to go into a lot more depth here at Next. And then if you want to find more, go to cloud.google.com/AI, and we'd love to be working with all of you. Thank you.